Sam, and I am one of the team of careers consultants here at Brunel. I recognise some of the names in the room, but obviously I don't know all of you, but you're all very, very welcome, and you all have your own careers consultant for your dedicated subject. So today we're going to be talking about international job search. So that's looking for jobs not in the UK. So hopefully that's the session that you were expecting. And what I'm going to do to start the session off is to ask you to use the QR code, and it will take you to a little question where it's going to ask you where in the world you're thinking of looking for work. So you might not have a definite idea, but if you just pop any questions, any kind of countries that you think are potentials for you to be looking for work in once you've finished your studies, or even in the summertime, you know, if you're looking for summer work in a different country, if you pop your answer in there for me. Just leave that up for a minute or two to make sure you've all got the chance to capture the QR code. Okay, so if we have a look, so we've got Australia, the US, Ireland, the United Kingdom also. Any other countries that you've considered working in? Just leave it a little bit longer so you've all got the chance to put your answers in. Canada, Europe in general, yeah. So Australia and USA are getting a lot of interest. Spain, nice. Ireland, I can't remember if I've said that already. Okay, interesting. How exciting. I think it's really, really exciting to be able to go and travel and work in a different country. So thank you so much for your answers there. I find it really inspiring. Okay, so well, let's have a look at what the popular countries are for looking for work. This information is a little bit old in that it's pre-pandemic, and I tried to find some more up-to-date information. So this might not be exactly the picture now, but in fairly recent years, the top countries have been France being the top one, but then the United States and Spain, which some of you have indicated you're interested in working those, and Ireland, you'll see on there, and Canada, but also places like China, Germany, and the United Arab Emirates as well. So, you know, and there's a whole world out there. And now that the pandemic has moved on, not moved off, but moved on a little bit, obviously all those lovely opportunities are still out there for you to be able to go and experience different cultures. And if we look at those top most popular countries for graduates to go and work in, we can see that most of them are European countries. And you know, what does that mean now in terms of visas and things like that since Brexit? Now, obviously, it very much depends on your own status as a student in the UK. You might well be an international student. You might well be an international student that has European citizenship. So there are obviously, whatever your particular situation is, visa requirements are going to be different. So some of the information that's on here is written kind of in the sense of someone who is a UK-based student. So for example, you know, Spain, someone was interested in Spain. So if you want to work there or stay for more than 3 months, then you need to have a visa, and there are different types of visa. I'm not sure for kind of, obviously, if you're a European national, you don't need a visa to work there. From other countries, I'm not sure. And this is the point really, is that you will always need to check what it is that's required. You know, for the USA, there is this J1 exchange program, so you can work or take part in a cultural exchange for up to 18 months. Anything other than that, it's really quite difficult to get a visa for anyone from any country in the USA. It is possible, but again, you'd need to look into that in quite a lot of detail. So I just wanted to show you, that even within Europe, there are differences. So for France, so for Spain, you can stay for 3 months or more, and they've got these different visas. For France, it's a little bit more straightforward. They have, I'll show you in a little while, actually, there's a link to a website which you can go onto and put in all of your details, and then it will tell you what type of visa you need. So certainly for France, it's quite easy to find out exactly what you need. So there are differences in visas for Ireland. For anyone from the UK, the EU, the European Economic Area, and Switzerland, you can just work there without any kind of employment permit. From countries outside any of those countries, you will need a work permit. So yeah, it's a complex picture, and obviously you need to know what the requirements are before you decide to go and work in a different country. But it can also be a good idea to look at, well, what areas are there opportunities in? So for each country, I've listed, the most important areas of industry that you can work in. And it can be also not just the biggest sectors, it can also be helpful to look at where are there shortages. And the Prospects website is really good for giving you that information. So, we've also got Australia here. So you've got some information on their kind of working holiday visas. What else? Canada was mentioned. So again, you can get a working holiday permit for up to 24 months as a UK citizen. Again, for different countries, it will be different. So you will need to check for each country. So that's just to give you a bit of an overview. So, what do I need to think about? First of all, well, it might be, what type of work can I get? What are the visa requirements if I'm thinking of moving to that country? And, you've got different options, because of course you can take a gap year, short-term work. So that could be a whole year long, or it could just be a couple of months. You could, maybe you're already working in an organization in the UK, and maybe they have a branch in a different country. So that can sometimes be an option to transfer. So you could think, well, I want a professional job, and yeah, maybe I'll get some experience in the UK and then try to transfer over to a different country. Some people look at, okay, well, I want to work in the finance industry, so let me kind of try and find a finance related job in a different country. And then some people just want to spend time abroad, so we'll look at getting whatever job it is that they can find. And then of course you've also got the option of further study abroad. So I can see there's a question here: for working in Ireland or Switzerland as an international student in the UK with a TEFL visa or post-study work visa, do we need to apply for separate work visa? The answer will be yes. It will depend what country you're from, and I won't know the answer. I can obviously kind of, we can work with you to help you try and find out what the answer is, but I probably won't know the answer off the top of my head. But yes, you will need a separate work visa. Because different countries all have different requirements, but really good question. Okay, so these are the main options that you can follow, either once you've finished your studies or again, in the summertime. Sometimes people go off and spend a couple of months in the summer. And I would really encourage you to sit down and think, okay, what is it that I want? So you might have an idea of where, and if you know kind of which country, you might be able to narrow it down to which city or region. But you might not have a defined country, and that's okay. You don't have to work down this list in the order that it's in, but you want to kind of be specific about what it is that you're looking for. So you might start with, well, okay, yeah, I want to work in finance, so let me look at which countries there are opportunities for finance graduates. And then you might want to think, well, what type of organization do I want to work for? Because that can help you to target the right kind of adverts. You want to sit down and think about, okay, well, what do I have to offer? What can I use to sell myself to the employers to show that they would be justified in hiring me? In some countries, employers have to justify why they're taking you on as an individual rather than someone who already lives in that country. Not for every country, but it is a criteria for some countries. So it's worth sitting down and thinking, and this is true of any job in any country anyway, whether it's in the UK or abroad, you know, what is it? What are my strengths? What are the hard skills? What are the soft skills that I have to offer? And sometimes your language skills can be a real selling point. Think about your timeline. So how long do you want to be away for? Or is it just open? You just want to go and move abroad and you have no particular time when you want to be back in the UK. It can be useful also to think about your salary requirements, because you will be paid different amounts for the same job in different countries, and you can go about starting to research that. And there's all kinds of other relevant information, you know, how available is housing? You know, do you want to be somewhere where you know someone already? So you will have personal criteria for yourself. But broadly speaking, these are the main things that you want to be thinking about when you're moving to a different country. So if we kind of take a look then at these short-term opportunities, you've got the option of TEFL teaching. So that's teaching English as a foreign language. And I'll talk you through how to become qualified to do that. And there are many, many kind of places that look for TEFL teachers in many different countries. Then you've got au pairing. And you can use this website to look for au pair opportunities, and they're usually between 6 to 12 months au pairing, so kind of working with children normally. You've got cruise ship jobs. So a lot of my music students, for example, look into cruise ship working because that can be quite a nice opportunity. But there are all kinds of jobs on cruise ships, whether it's for hairdressers, musicians, you know, just general hospitality positions. And Prospects has a whole page dedicated to where you can look for cruise ship jobs. You've got kind of ski or outdoor activity seasons. So obviously ski season will be in the winter, whether that's in the Northern Hemisphere or the Southern Hemisphere, that will be at opposite ends of the year. So some people look at doing maybe a ski season in the winter, and that has got a little bit more complicated since Brexit, certainly for UK nationals. But I was reading yesterday that it is now easier. And so ski organisations are back to wanting to hire people, certainly from the UK. For other students from other countries, again, you know, you would need to look carefully into the visa requirements. So yeah, some people do a ski season in the winter and then maybe look at, I don't know, kind of canoe instructing or, you know, whatever other type of outdoor activity they enjoy in terms of other seasons in the summer. There are plenty of costed options out there. So there are organizations which you can contact, such as Brunel, for example, who you pay them and then they help you to organize an experience abroad. And I would say, you know, always be really careful with that. Brunel is a very firmly established and recognized organization. There are plenty of organizations out there that will be very happy to take your money and are maybe not quite as reliable. You know, sometimes people end up paying a lot of money and not necessarily getting the experience that they want. So I would always say be very, very careful with that kind of option. There are options for taking part in animal care and conservation, fruit picking and farm work, obviously social care and community-based work. You've got your summer camps, so Camp America, Camp Canada, again, you've got Brunel there. And I popped this link in here for the Prospects website because they have got a whole list of websites relating to each of these different options. So there's a really rich source of job vacancy websites that you can look at. If you look on the Prospects Gap Year link that I've popped there, I can't copy it, but you'll get the slides afterwards. So TEFL teaching, I just wanted to kind of say a quick word about that. If you, again, there are all kinds of organizations that will hire people, but ideally, if you get qualified properly, then you're more likely to be hired by a reputable organization that will look after you. And you will also have a much better idea of actually how to teach English, which is always good if that's the job that you're going to do. The two most recognized qualifications there are out there are the Certificate in Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages, the CELTA, and the Cert TESOL, and they're awarded by Cambridge and Trinity. So these are very, very well recognized by employers abroad. Some employers will accept other qualifications and you will find other cheaper qualifications out there, but again, I would say be really careful. There is also the British Council Language Assistance Scheme, whereby you go and work in schools in different countries, and they are next open for applications in the autumn of this year. So you've got the link there for that. So teaching English abroad can be a really fun experience. I did it and I loved it, so I can definitely recommend it. So what do you need to think about? We've already mentioned visas. I can't, you know, it's very, very important. Many countries will allow you to go and visit for a short amount of time, maybe 3 months, for example, but anything longer than that. And if you want to be working, you do need a working visa. Thinking about money, you know, you can just go to a country and look for a job when you're there, but I would definitely recommend that you take at least enough money to be able to live for a whole month, so that you can support yourself when you first get there. You don't want to arrive and then think, oh, actually, how am I going to live? How am I going to buy food? It's not as, I don't want to use the word important, but obviously COVID vaccinations, this time last year, it was very, very strict in many different countries. It's not as strict now, but you do still need to just double check if the country that you're going to does have any requirements there in terms of vaccines for COVID and or other vaccinations as well. Some countries won't allow you to visit unless you've got the vaccinations that they specify. Think about the language. Do you know, is it a country where really you need to kind of have some of the basics or not? And think about, do you need some relevant experience first? So if you're applying for jobs in a certain field and you're not getting any interviews, you might want to think, well, actually, maybe is it because I'm lacking that relevant experience? And, you know, can I spend a bit of time building up that experience in the UK beforehand? Obviously, you want to think about where to look for jobs, and I'm going to give you lots of sources. You know, that gap year link on prospects is one source. I'm going to give you some other sources today, but if you're looking in a specific industry, you know, you can always come and have a chat to your careers consultant just to see if there's anything else, anywhere else that you can look. You want to think about the style of CV. Now, if you're an international student and you've come to study in the UK, you might have noticed that UK CVs are a bit different to the CVs in the country that you kind of traveled from. And so the same is going to be true in other countries. CVs are different in all different countries. So you want to think about, actually, do I need to change my CV to match the market that I'm applying for? So I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about Europe in a little bit more detail. So as a UK citizen, you will need a work permit to work in most EU countries, which means you need a job offer from the chosen country so that you can get a visa to move there. So you can check this on the UK-based embassy of the country you want to work in. And, you know, if you're from a country that isn't in the UK, same thing. You can check at the UK-based embassy. So this link is going to work for you, whether you're an international student or a UK student. You've also got on the gov.uk website, a living in guide for the different EU countries. And again, that's going to be useful for you as a home student or as an international student. And then this website has some quite useful information for living and working in different European countries as well. And just taking that example there of France, so as we've already said, you can travel to countries in the area called the Schengen area for up to 90 days in any 180-day period without a visa as a tourist, to visit friends or family, to go to business meetings. So all of the things that aren't work, you can spend up to 90 days. So 3 months in any 6 months period. But taking the example of France, to stay longer, you've got to meet the entry requirements. And to check that, you can use this link here. And this link will work for UK students, international students, whichever country you've traveled from or you originate from. You can just put in all of your details and it will tell you very, very clearly which visa you need. So France have made it really nice and easy. Other countries, as I say, check out the information on the embassy website for that country in the UK, and they will be able to tell you what you need to move to their country. So this is the website for France. So this, you can see this here, this do you need a visa? It says test in 3 minutes. Did it take me 3 minutes? Maybe a few minutes more, but it was pretty quick. I just put in all of my details. I pretended that I was a 21-year-old and it told me what I needed. So it's not complicated. For checking out those vaccination requirements that I mentioned, you've got this link here, which you can find the country that you're looking to travel to, and it will tell you what is needed. And again, you can check out the foreign travel advice on the gov.uk website. So there are lots of things to think about, but with all of these links, you should have all the places that you can go to consult, to check what's going to be needed for you. Do I need to know the language? What do you think? Hop in the chat what you think about whether you need to speak the language before you go and work in a different country. There's no right answer here, by the way. Some basic level. It's probably helpful, isn't it? Sridevi, beneficial, yep. Yeah, I mean, if you're going somewhere, you know, and it really does depend. Some countries that you go to, I'm thinking of places like perhaps the Netherlands and Denmark, some of the Scandinavian countries. Even if you learn some words, generally they will just reply to you in English, because learning English as a language is they're very strong on that in the schools in those countries, whereas other countries that you go to, it can be very, very difficult if you don't know any words at all, you know. So I think, you know, the basics is a really good word. Shridevi and Alima, yeah, it's always going to make you feel more comfortable if you've got some knowledge. And there are different ways that you can develop your language. Obviously at Brunel we do have the language courses. They're kind of coming to a close for this year, but you know, if you're thinking of going in a couple of years' time, then you could always register for the Brunel language courses next year. You may well have heard of the app Duolingo. There are many languages that you can practice the basics on Duolingo. The BBC has got a languages website. There are websites like italki where you can get language lessons from kind of native speakers. You can go to podcasts. So you've got things like French Made Easy, Learn Italian, Easy German. And then obviously the social media channels like Instagram, YouTube, you can find all kinds of people sharing their knowledge from the really, really basic up to more advanced level. And just tuning in yourself to radio or from the country that you wish to travel to, or television, once you've got, you know, some of the basics, can help you to just get used to what it's like to hear that language all the time. So obviously how to impress international employers, the language skills is going to be one of those things, but what else? So we've talked about using the correct type of CV. Now at Brunel, we do have a subscription to a website called Going Global, and it's quite hard to say, but Going Global is really, really fantastic, because for each country, it will show you exactly what a typical CV would look like. They update this information every year. So there's lots of really fantastic information, not just on CVs and covering letters, but also, you know, what's typical dress for interviews, how to approach interviews, other things to think about. So Going Global is a fantastic resource to take a look at. You might want to think about networking. So let's say that you want to become a physiotherapist in Spain, then you want to check out perhaps if there is a professional body for physiotherapy in Spain. There very likely will be. They may have some networking events, or there may be some forums you can join. You can build up contacts that way. So networking can be a really nice way to start getting in contact with employers. And then think really carefully about what it is that makes you unique. So it could be your language skills, as we've already mentioned. It could be your international perspective. You know, if you're an international student who has come to study in the UK and now you want to go and work somewhere else, you know, you've already shown that you can adapt to living in a different country and perhaps operating at quite a high level using a different language. So that's very special. A lot of employers value that. You want to show that you have some kind of understanding of the culture, and that you understand the immigration laws. You know, there's no point applying for a job if there's really no way for you to get a visa to work there. And just as for any job in the UK, it's really important that you show that you're confident in your ability to do the job and that you know your skills and your strengths. Here's an example of a French CV that you'll find on Going Global, and you'll see that there's a photograph here. Now, you probably know that in the UK, it's not appropriate to have a photograph on your CV. So that's one of the things that's different about a CV in France, okay? Quite apart from the fact that obviously the CV, you know, the headings are written in French. And it depends whether, if you're applying for an international organization, it may be fine to use a CV that's written in English, but it also may not be fine. Will the slides be available to us? Yes, the slides will be available to you afterwards. Thank you, Carly. So I just want to, I talked about kind of, you know, making sure you know your skills and your strengths, and I just want to highlight the difference between those. If you've come to my kind of know your strengths, you might kind of recognize this couple of slides coming up, but the difference between a skill and a strength. So a skill can be learnt, a skill can be specific to your degree. Anyone want to have a guess at what a strength is then? You know, so if we take an example of, let's think of a skill. So delivering a presentation. That's something that you can learn how to do, even if you didn't know beforehand. But a strength is a little bit different. What is a strength? I want to take a guess. A little bit confusing. Yeah, good, Shridavi. Your own personal trait. So own personal trait, which we develop over time, maybe a little bit, but it's more that kind of really innate talent that comes to you very almost naturally, that people really notice about you. Okay. So yeah, the things that really make you stand out. So that's the strength. So then if we look at skills in a little bit more detail, you probably know the difference between soft skills. So these are the kinds of things that help you to fit into a workplace and to do a good job, you know, the ability to interact with people and, you know, fit into a team nicely. Whereas the hard skills are the more quantifiable skills. So being able to speak a particular language, maybe being able to use a particular type of software program, having knowledge of a particular piece of program on a computer, being able to program. So sometimes the hard skills can be the ones that are important for skills shortages jobs like engineering in some countries, for example. And the top 10 employability skills, you'll see that most of these are those soft skills, and that's the same whether that's a job in the UK or a job in a different country. So if you look at this list and you think, oh, actually, maybe I have a bit of a gap there, it can be worth thinking about, well, how can I plug that gap? And again, you can come and talk to us if you want some help with how to develop that particular skill. Strengths, I'm going to whiz through this because I'm conscious that we're running out of time, or we've run out of time. Ask people that know you what they think about your particular strengths. You've got the High Five strength assessment, which you can use to help you find out about your own strengths. But you can also sit down and reflect, think about things like what comes more naturally to you and in what way. So if you're good with numbers, probably everyone in your class, if you're studying mathematics, is also good with numbers, but in what particular way are you good at working with numbers? Think about, your golden moments of triumph. And that could be, you've managed to stand up in front of a room and deliver a presentation, even though you were absolutely petrified. So in that instance, your strength is not presenting. Your strength is your courage to do things that are scary for you. And your go-to skill you use to overcome difficult situations. So when things all go wrong, what do you do? Are you the one that stays calm and keeps everyone else calm? Do you come up with a creative solution? So a little bit of reflection, as well as using the kind of tests out there, can help you. And, thinking about which one you are in the room. Are you the motivator? Are you the listener? So, if you work on a group project, which one are you? And you've got a list here of different strengths. I would say, just have a look at the list and maybe think about 3 that resonate for you. Just noticed a question in the chat. It says to request the password from careers at Brunel, but on the Outlook, the automatic reply says this email is no longer monitored. I'm not sure I understand the question. Can we come back to...
Sorry, I think that's about going global. I'll pop the password in the chat.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So I'm not going to kind of go on about this one, but it can be worth thinking about, well, how do I use my strengths in my studies? And how do I use my strengths at work? And then you use that information to sell yourself when you're applying to those employers. So where can you look for opportunities? So you remember you've got that lovely page for gap year opportunities on the Prospects website. I've popped some other links for things like TEFL and things like that. ISEC has got some good global volunteering opportunities, as does the United Nations. BUNAC, as I've mentioned, is costed opportunities. Going Global will have some websites for you. The E4S website has got a good listing of gap year jobs and short-term jobs. If, however, you're looking for something more longer term, and you know which industry you're looking for, then you can find specialist sites for the sector you're interested in on our Brunel Industry A to Z. And you can also on a lot of the normal graduate job search websites, which hopefully you already know about. So things like Prospects, and if I type them in the chat, and things like Target Jobs, and things like Bright Network, which I can never remember, I think it's .co.uk. Some of those normal graduate job search sites, you can search for jobs in different countries on those websites, okay? And of course, as I've mentioned, you can just go abroad and look, but it is really worth having some kind of a strategy before you do that. So thank you. Carly's already put that information in the chat for you, which is great. And you've got, so 2 different sectors on the Prospects website. Whoops. What have I done? So on the Prospects website, they've broken down for many different, not every single country, but for most of the big countries that students wish to go and work in, they've put together a whole guide for you. So, working in France, working in the United Arab Emirates, and they will have specific websites for those countries in there. So the Prospects section, both for the gap year and for this individual working abroad, are really good sources of information for looking for jobs abroad. Target Jobs also has a page. It's not as easy to find. If you follow this link, you need to scroll down to the bottom of the page and you'll find a working abroad section. These are most of the organizations that have attended our global careers fair in the past few years. So I don't know if you attended the fair earlier this week, But all of these organizations are offering some kind of opportunities, whether they're paid, volunteering, short-term, long-term. So if you're looking for ideas and you didn't manage to get along to the fair, then you might want to look up some of these organizations.